All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to another dive into the Gospel of Thomas, where we are examining it very methodically, going through each verse and seeing what comes up, seeing what sort of wisdom we can take from these very powerful words. And if you are just tuning into this episode for the first time, just know that this is a continuation of the series that we've been doing on this, which has been extremely powerful. Both Darth and I have been just very, very amazed at how deep this text is and how concise it is. It's not a long text. There's only 114 passages. You could essentially read it in a couple hours, probably much less, but the depth that you can get out of it, it's very much worthwhile of spending lots of time on it. Did you have something on that?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that while it's not a massive text, it's very concise, but it's so thick and concentrated. It's like a laser, and there's just so much information packed into it. It's not a big read, but it's not a light read either.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we're on part 5, episode 5 of this Gospel of Thomas series. And I imagine there's going to be at least a few more, just at the rate that we're going. And I don't feel like we're going too fast or spending too much time. I mean,
we have not been dawdling and even putting 2 hours per episode. We haven't finished it yet.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to be picking up on that. So if you want to start at the beginning, I'd recommend watching the series. But you're still going to get a lot just tuning into this episode. And it became very clear, kind of spoke about this in the other episodes, that the reasons why this book was removed and kept out of the canonical Bible that we know, because there's far too much power embedded into these words. It's far too simple. The truth is very simple. The realization of who we really are is very simple. And so the lie has to be very complex in order to keep us away from it. And so when you have something that is this simple, this plainly laid out, of bringing us back to ourselves and realizing our highest potential, which is all the Christ energy truly does, and anyone who embodies this Christic energy is striving to do, is just rekindle that awakening, rekindle that Christ in each and every one, so that we can create a more magnificent, beautiful, heavenly space. So yeah, let's just dive into this one today, and we'll pick up where we left off. So I'm going to share a screen, and we're just going to go through it line by line. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Well, I was just saying that the information, all of it, has been, every single verse we've read has been relevant and powerful and dangerous to the establishment. It's very self-evident why it was removed and why it's considered so offensive and why it's been attacked repeatedly.
Yep.
And continued to be attacked.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to pick up, I believe, where we left off, and I think that's at verse 62. So just reading along, Yeshua said, "I reveal my mysteries to those who become worthy. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Okay, so I do remember reading this one, so we'll skip that one. And then verse 63, Yeshua said, "There was once a rich man with a great amount of money who said, 'I will use my money for sowing, reaping, planting, and filling my silos with grain, so that I will never lack for anything.' Such was the thought of his heart. Yet that night he died. Those who have ears, let them hear." So this is akin to the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew and the other canonical Gospels, where he's speaking of, consider the birds, or consider the lilies, how they don't toil and save up for winter or worry about harvest or storing up things. And are they not cared for? Are you not greater than they? So this little simple story is just a contrasting show of what it means to focus on the external, what it means to solely place my attention on having accumulation of whatever. And we think, oh, if I have this or I have that, then I won't need to worry any longer. But if we spend all our time preparing to avoid this worry state, what if we just skip past that and just move to the not worry and trust that everything works out as it needs to? And then everything does work out as it needs to, because that's the law of reciprocity. This is the law of vibration that matches what we are emitting, the energetic response that we are putting out. So in this story, this guy spends all this time worrying about what he's got to accumulate, to worry about the winter, worry about the lack, and then he dies. So what good was that? He never really lived. It was all of this spending efforts to avoid whatever made up concept he had in his mind of worrying about something. So, yeah.
Okay, so there once was a rich man. So he was rich in the occult. He had the keys, because before we were talking about how there are those that have the keys to enter into heaven, and they themselves do not go into it, and they don't allow anyone else. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about someone who's wealthy spiritually. And in this particular case, this person is he's evil. Okay, so he has a great amount of money. That's occult knowledge, and he's managed to infiltrate into some sort of spiritual organization or spiritual family, because he's in a position to use his occult knowledge to make himself money. Okay, so somebody can have occult knowledge, but they're not in the position to entrap others. Okay, so really, what sort of external power do they have as far as misleading people, right? No one's going to listen to them, right? But this person, he has the means, and he has a motive, and he has the opportunity. So he's infiltrated a church or a congregation, and he has true knowledge, and he says, I'm going to put this knowledge to use. He's going to hide the knowledge, and he's going to replace it with artificial knowledge. He's going to replace the truth with lies for his own purposes, so that he can get donations, he can get power, he can manipulate people, he can get access to women, children, whatever it is that his lust is for. And this is the thought of his heart, because it's his treacherous heart that has the perverse longings. So out of this, he says, well, now he'll never lack anything. He'll be able to be the best parasite ever. But Jesus Christ says that very night he died. And why would he die? Because he himself lost the keys to the kingdom. There's no way to become evil and not consume your own product. There's no way to pervert your knowledge and then say, well, I'll give others the perverted knowledge, but I'll keep the true knowledge for myself, because there's no way to take heaven by force. So if someone thinks that they're going to be able to do that, he says those who have ears. So if you have the knowledge of the occult and you have spiritual knowledge, don't even think about misusing it, because that very night, the Christ will withdraw from you that you do this, and you'll die, and you'll still be alive in the flesh, but there'll be no Christ within you. So for all essential purposes, you will be dead. And then when that flesh dies, there's no Christ within you to reincarnate. So if you have that spiritual knowledge, you better listen to this. And this is this is a continuation or a restatement of what Christ said, Yeshua said before, that you can make a lot of mistakes, but whatever you do, do not sin against the Holy Spirit. Do not sin against the occult. So this is what he's saying. Rich man has a lot of knowledge, and he says, I'm going to use this knowledge for physical power, and then I'll have everything I want. And those are the thoughts that came out of his heart. But the night he thought it, and the night he took one step in that, he contaminated himself, and he was dead on his feet. So beware. So these are once again, these are marching instructions from Yeshua on how to move forward with the secrets that he's teaching us.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so it's like that as soon as we stamp ourselves with only self-serving, then we're essentially signing our death warrant, because creation puts a limit on anything that is only self-serving. All parasites have an expiration date. So if we live like a parasite, if we label ourselves a parasite through our actions, then we are acknowledging our own expiration date, and our time is limited. So it's using that richness and using that knowledge in service to creation itself. And I'm not saying exclude oneself. We don't need to martyr and sign deals of poverty or whatever, because that's another misconception. But whatever it is that you do is in service to all.
Right. You're correct in that. So it says, so that I will never lack in anything. So in his parasite mind, he's not content with the Father's provisions. He's not content with his proper portion. And so in his parasite heart, he's thinking that he's lacking because he's not able to get stuff that's entitled, that belongs to other people. And so he thinks that he needs to go beyond the divine way to take from others, and then he won't be in lack. However, this is wrong, because your destination is always your origin. So if you think you're starting from lack, then no matter what you do, you're going to end in lack. The truth, or the secret, is to acknowledge that we originate from abundance. And what is the abundance that we have? It's the abundance of the Christ. It's the abundance of coming from the absolute. That's where we come from. And so that's where we're going to end.
Yeah, well said.
That's a powerful little 63 right there.
Absolutely, yeah.
First verse is a good one, right?
Yeah. So verse 64, Yeshua said, there was a man who invited some visitors. After preparing the meal, he sent his servant to summon the guests. The servant went to the first one and said, my master invites you. The man answered, I have business with some merchants who are arriving this evening. Please excuse me from the dinner. The servant went to the next one and said, my master invites you. The man answered, I have just bought a house and need one day more, so I cannot come. The servant went to another guest and said, my master invites you. The man answered, my friend is getting married and I must prepare the food. Excuse me. The servant returned to his master and said, those you have invited to dinner cannot come. His master replied, then go out on the roads and invite whoever you find to dine with me. Buyers and merchants will not enter my Father's dwelling. I think that's the end. Yeah. So this one is, he kind of says it at the end. Buyers and merchants will not enter my Father's dwelling. So those who have made their busyness their priority, you can't serve two masters. Those who are so focused on status or physical accumulation or whatever the case may be, they're always going to say, oh no, I'm too busy for whatever it is that Spirit's providing us. So wherever we're being led or called to from a divine inspiration, we'll always be on the back burner towards those physical pursuits, if that is my priority, which that's what society has conditioned us to be so focused on the physicality, the status, the money, the wealth. So every time that God beckons us, the divine beckons us with the servant, we deny him. We deny that divine calling. And so at the end, he says that then go out on the roads and invite whoever you find to dine with me, whoever's willing, whoever's wanting, whoever has that open receiving, because they're not bound to the physical obsession. So those are those who will enter into the kingdom of heaven, into my Father's dwelling. Those are the ones who will make it.
Okay, so let me see if you can scroll up to the beginning. Okay, so Yeshua says there's a man who had invited some visitors. The man is the absolute divine. That is the truest, highest self. And he's invited some visitors to partake in reality. And we are the visitors. We are the manifested personas of the divine. We're all of God's children here on earth. And the divine has prepared the meal. And what the meal is, it's heaven on earth. It's the celebration of all the bliss that goodness has to offer. And he has sent his servants. These are all the manifested Christ-like personas here on earth, all of the prophets, all of the divine teachers. And so God is always sending a teacher to summon guests to come and partake of heaven here on earth. And so so the teacher comes to the first one and says, my master invites you to partake. And it's these are the partake of the teachings of Christ. That's part of the meal. And the first one that he goes to is the early church infiltrators, right? And what he says is that I have business with some merchants who are arriving this evening. Please excuse me from the dinner. So the merchants are the Jews that had infiltrated into the Mosaic law. And because that's who the Jews were. They were bankers, they were merchants, they were money lenders and money makers. That's just who Yeshua is talking about here. And that's the same, even if you look on mainstream modern Western Christians texts, Jesus is always talking smack against the Jews because that's just who they were. They were money lenders. So this is who he's talking about. So this person who's now part of the early Christian congregation, he is inviting these Jews into the Christian congregation, and he's doing business with them because these Jews, remember, these are the ones that hid the keys to the temple or hid the keys into heaven, and they didn't go and they didn't allow anyone else to go. So now these early church fathers of Christianity, they want to learn the secrets of how to extract wealth out of the congregation and how to prevent people from finding their own power in Christ and how to control them. So it says that that these people, they're going to meet with the merchants. So once again, they are not going to go into heaven. 64 is a continuation of 63. Christ said, listen, do not pervert these teachings. And now he's talking about people that, what are they doing? They're perverting the teachings. Okay, so now the servant goes on to the next one. And now, let me see here. So now he's going on to the next group of people, and he's saying, my master invites you. And this person is saying, I've just bought a house and I need one day more, so I can't come. So who are these people? These are people that have successfully started a church. They've successfully started their own little piece of the new Christian religion, which Jesus Christ was saying, listen, do not start a religion. These teachings are not to start centralized power. They're to empower the individual to get in touch with the Christ within. So this person is saying, listen, I'm not interested in that. I've just started my own little congregation, or I've captured some people here, right? So now they're not gonna be part of this new heaven. So then now he goes to another guest and says, my master invites you. And this one is he's getting married. And that's a commitment. So this person is now committed toward not following the way of the Christ. He's now committed toward doing business with the merchants, because these three people, it's a progression of the fall of Christ's teachings. It's a progression of the establishment of the Roman Catholic Church. So the first person reaches out to learn how to capture people. The next person has actually done it, and the third person is committed to this way. So finally, the servant, the Christ that's manifested on earth, he goes back to the absolute divine, and he says, listen, all these people you invited, they're not going to come. And they've done the exact opposite of what I've said to do. So now the absolute divine says, go out to the roads and invite whoever you can find. So it's going to be everyone that falls outside of religion. It's going to be everyone that religion rejects, all of the lowly, all of, those that are just struggling. And that's the one that Christ is going to reside in. That's the one that the divine is going to reside in. It's this verse is a massive condemnation of organized religion. Mm-hmm. So buyers and merchants, not welcome in heaven. So there's a scripture in the Bible where it says, where these merchants and these religious people, they go up to Christ and they're saying, didn't I do these great powerful works in your name? And then he says, get away from me. Depart from me. I never knew you. So who does Christ know? Those that are not part of religion.
Yep. Yeah, well said. So verse 65, Yeshua said, a good man had a vineyard, which he gave to tenants to work and harvest the fruit for him. He sent his servant to collect the fruit of the vine, but the tenants seized the servant and beat him nearly to death. The servant reported this to his master, who thought, perhaps they didn't recognize him. And he sent another servant who was also beaten. Then the master sent his own son, thinking, perhaps they will treat him with respect. When the tenants realized that he was the inheritor of the vineyard, they seized him and killed him. Those who have ears, let them hear. So this one, maybe it's referencing the risk of going and speaking and sending someone else in your stead. Maybe his error was that he needed to go himself and stop sending others to do that. But I don't know, this one's more challenging, so I'll pass it over to you.
So the good man is the same good man from before. It's the absolute divine, God himself. And he has a vineyard, and the vineyard is the earth. And he's sending, he has handed over the earth to those that have spiritual knowledge, knowledge of the occult. Because people that have knowledge of the occult, they kind of control most of mankind. They act like a rudder on a ship.
The storytellers.
Yeah, the storytellers, right? So, and he wants them to help the people, the vineyard, all of the collective consciousness of mankind. They have to produce fruit. And what is fruit? The fruit is all it's the product of love in someone's heart. So the fruit that God is expecting the tenants to produce is love, compassion, abundance, all of the positive fruits of the spirits. And so he sent his servants to collect the fruit of the vine. So the servant would be the servant is the embodiment of the Mosaic law. It's the embodiment of all the spiritual writings. But the tenants, the storytellers, they have seized the word of God and they've beat it just about to death. They've perverted it and they've captured it and they force it. Instead of using it to free people, they use it to capture people. So then the master says, well, maybe these people, they just don't understand the divine word. So he sends another servant, and this would be like prophets, more teachers, but they don't treat him with respect either. So finally, the good man embodies himself. He sends his son, because the son and the father are one. The father becomes a son, and the son becomes a father, and the father and the son are one, because you reincarnate into your own bloodline. So, so, so God manifests himself here on earth. And then the tenants, these are the church fathers, the spiritual leaders, they realize that that this is the inheritor of reality, and so they kill him. And so those that have spiritual ears need to hear and listen, because if you choose to remove God from here on earth, then there can be no goodness here on earth, because God is good. And so then if God is removed from the earth, then what you have is, then you're going to have the hostile aspect of the divine manifest here on earth, and it will seize the field and kill those that have done this thing. And then they will give it to those that are outside of religion. And we're kind of seeing this today, where everyone that is part of the system of systems, they won't stop participating in all of the toxic way of living that results in death. That's part of the system. But those that are outside, the poor, they don't have the money to go see a doctor. They don't have the resources to participate in the poisons. And like, sometimes you would think that they're the ones doing the worst, but they're the ones that keep having children. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that it works. Yeah. There's a spiritual law to this sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. And then verse 66, a short one. Yeshua said, "Show me the stone rejected by the builders. That is the cornerstone." So I think if you're listening to this, you can relate with that feeling of rejection. The straight and narrow path is narrow for a reason, because it's very refining. So naturally, throughout our lives, we've gone through this refining process where the normal status quo of society is not fitting for our spirit, our energy. It's yearning for something more. That Christ within us is begging to, or not begging, but encouraging itself to step out, encouraging us to let it in. And through that process, we become rejected. Society doesn't, we become the outcast in a lot of ways. But that's the true test of faith, is those who can go through that gauntlet and be rejected by society. Those are the ones who are the most fitting for that Christed energy to reside in. So that's what he says here. That is the cornerstone. That stone that's been rejected by the builders, that's the one that I want to be my strength, the strongest rock that I can reside in.
That's it. The individual that's rejected by religion and rejected by the system, that is the cornerstone, or the capstone, because the word for cornerstone is the same thing as the word for the capstone, and it's a reference to the pyramids, because the pyramids had a capstone where all the power of all of the machinery and building and the rooms that are underneath the pyramids that go deep down into the earth, and they gather all of that energy and they continually concentrate it and purify it till finally that energy is brought into the pyramid, where it's further purified and concentrated till finally it hits the capstone, and then that energy is manifested into the world. But at the same time, the building also has cornerstones, but they're all equally important and they work together. So to be the cornerstone, or to be the capstone, is the whole point of why there are even people here that view themselves as something separate from God, so that we can have that beautiful vision of reality and of goodness. But in order to have that, you have to be rejected by the builders, because Because if you're accepted by the builders, if you're useful to the system of systems, then you're not able to actually see the divine. All you can do is see what they want you to see.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's the purpose of Babylon, of the world. It's there as a test. It's there as a opportunity to break free from. If we fall into it, if we become engulfed by it, then we're still going through that process. But eventually, the Christ catches on, and we start to break free. But naturally, when we start to do that, Babylon rejects us, and so that's a good sign that you're heading in the right direction. Though it can certainly be uncomfortable at times, but that's the challenge that really helps to refine those who are worthy. You have to be courageous in order to be worthy for this path. And so if you're so consumed by the perceptions of others, or being accepted by society, or fitting into the system, then you're not ready. You're not ready for this path, and that's okay. But it's just a simple refining mechanism built into creation. So that's what he's referring to here. So yeah, moving on to verse 67, Yeshua said, "Those who know the all, yet do not know themselves, are deprived of everything." So he's sort of, I see this as sort of drawing attention to over intellectualism. Those who hyper focus on learning everything from a mental perspective solely, excluding the heart connection, which is the knowing that the all is you. So those who think they know the all, but are still keeping the all separate from themselves, they do not know themselves, are deprived of everything, because they're missing that fundamental aspect, which is that the all is you. So, and it's not, of course, it can come and go in waves, but it's not nearly as successful if we focus on the external and do not know of ourselves, because we can't really know of the external until we know ourselves. The external will still be clouded in obscurity until we know ourselves, because it's all part of the same. So start with that. Start with knowing thyself, and in turn, as a natural part of the exploration, you begin to know all and everything, because there's no difference. There is no separation other than for the experience.
Yeah, you nailed it. The translation on this is a little bit sticky, or I don't know, it's a little foggy, but you still got the point of it. So when it says the all that it's referring to here is the entirety of the scriptures. So someone can know, they can be able to recite the entire scriptures. They can recite every verse in the Bible perfectly. But if they don't know themselves, which would be the Christ within, then they miss the entire point of the scriptures.
Right.
And this is exactly what the churches have done, because the churches teach many variations of the scriptures, and they have, every Sunday and a couple times during the week, they're always expounding on the scriptures, and the people are continuously learning, but they never get introduced to the Christ within. And so then there ends up being no point to all of that teaching, and there's no point to all of that knowledge, because the only source of life that there is the Christ within. And the only true power that there is the Christ within. So it doesn't matter how many scriptures you can recite. It doesn't matter what your position is in the church, because all of that is dead stone walls, and so it's going to have to result in death. And then if you don't nurture the Christ within, then there's nothing to reincarnate, and then your life comes to an end, and your persona comes to an end, and then it's pointless. So you have to get to know yourself, specifically the Christ within, and then the Christ within can interpret the scriptures properly.
Mm-hmm. And that was the original intention of the scriptures, was to give you a stepping stone to knowing thyself. But of course, the church flipped that and distorted the interpretation interpretations only teaches a literal interpretation of it, as if it's just a history book that happened a long time ago. And sure, we can take some moral guidance from it, but that's really it. And so I always love the wisdom of Bill Donahue, and he said, take the Bible, take every single character, or take the Bible and say, insert your name here as the title, and then take every single character and replace that with you. You are all of those characters. Those are all of your various personalities, emotions, ways that we show up, points in our life where we operated in different ways, perhaps. And the point is to take all of those characters that we can show, we can be, and have them shift towards the Christ. You know, to really refine those characters to be Christic in all ways. But we have to learn through contrast as well. So that's why there is a lot of contrasting elements within the biblical stories, and the allegories are very rich and vibrant, and even like wars and things of that nature. They're all designed to bring us to that realization that it's all you. But if we're never taught that, I mean, of course we come to it eventually. We always do come back to it. But if it's purposefully taught the inverted sense, that keeps us away from that realization for quite some time, which is what we've been through. So yeah, very well said. We all know religious people who can recite every single verse, and they claim to know this and that, but then you find out that they're not really that good of people, and they don't really live a very virtuous life. They just are putting on a face and don't even really know themselves, you know. So you're deprived of everything, including the divine influence, including the divine gifts that are given when you know thyself. That's the whole point of this.
Yeah, when the devil was tempting Christ in the wilderness, he quoted scripture.
Yep. So verse 68, Yeshua said, "Blessed are you when they hate you and persecute you. There is a place where you are not persecuted that they will never find." So this is very similar to the show me the stone rejected by the builders. Just sort of giving grace and encouragement to those who feel hated and persecuted, rejected by the builders, rejected by society. But he reminds them there's a place where you are not persecuted that they will never find, and that is within you. When we truly step into our true essence, we recognize that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not these thoughts, I'm not anything that can be touched by somebody else. I'm beyond all of that. So no matter what happens to me physically, I can never be touched. They will never find it. They can never reach me there, which is why the dogma is desperate to keep us from that place, because they can't get us there.
Exactly. So this verse has a dual meaning. So the first one Justin brought out. So the way that they persecute you is to argue. They're attacking the truth of Christ that's within your heart. So that's the specific persecution that he's talking about here, besides physical persecution. But there is a place where we are not persecuted that they can never find. So this is a sort of like, if you know sort of situation, that once you see and you've acquired spiritual eyes, then you have spiritual knowledge, and you know, and there isn't anything they can say or do to divorce you from the truth in your heart. There's nothing they can do to forcibly separate you from the Christ within. Once you've acquired that, then you're sort of in this immortal, invincible situation as far as teaching wise. But there's a second application to this scripture, that we are blessed when they hate us because they're in opposition to us, or they're in opposition to the Christ within our heart. And they do persecute us at first. So they do have a sort of temporary success at first. However, we can find a place where we're no longer persecuted and they can't even find us, right? So what Christ is saying here is that once we become unified enough with the Christ within our heart, then not only are we in a defensible spiritual position, but now we can manifest a defensible physical position. Because remember, we're engaged in a war here on earth, first in heaven. So first we have to win the battle in heaven. And once we've won the battle in heaven, then we can win the battle here on earth. And that's what happened. Christ, he ended up, because of the teachings that he taught, he ended up ending the Roman Empire for a while. And it changed the world. Physically, here on earth, we had a unified Christian empire where things were wonderful. Okay? So if we're not manifesting goodness here on earth, then our teachings are not true. If we're not having victories here on earth, then we don't actually have any power. And then the teachings are false, because a true teaching would result in power, the power to produce goodness here on earth. So this is what he's saying, is that there's a place where you're not persecuted and they'll never find you, that they can't find this. They don't have access to this power, but we have access to this power because it comes from the Christ within the heart. We have the ability to produce a defensible position that is safe from our enemies, and then we're no longer persecuted when you're in control. But first you have to have control within, and then you can have control without.
Yeah, I like that. All right, verse 69. Yeshua said, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted in their hearts, for they have known the Father in truth. Blessed are those who are hungry, for they will be fulfilled." So this is sort of a continuation in some ways. Blessed are those who have been persecuted in their hearts, for they have known the Father in truth. Blessed are those who are hungry, for they will be fulfilled. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add on this one. What you got?
So this is a continuation of 68. So there's a growth process of where we're maturing spiritually. So to be persecuted in their hearts, that's sort of a reference to cognitive dissonance, because what the physical eyes see versus what the spiritual eyes see is two different maps. The physical eyes might see only a position of weakness. The physical eyes might see impending doom, but the spiritual eyes can look at the exact same situation and see opportunity, can see security, can see salvation, redemption, all of these positive results. They're two completely different worlds. So when you go through that persecution in your heart, that's part of the growth process. It hurts to grow. Sometimes, teenagers, they're complaining, "Oh, my knees hurt, my joints hurt." They're going through growth pains because their bones are growing quicker than the muscles, and the muscles have to stretch, and that's the process that we go through. The struggle is to how are we going to see the world? So blessed are those that are going through this growth pain in their hearts, because the heart is where the Christ resides. We're trying to get to that place of security where we're not going to be persecuted and our enemies can't even find us. But we have to go through that growth in the heart, both as individuals and as a collective, as a nation. And then when we grow spiritually, then we can know the Father in truth. And who's the Father? The Father is hidden. He's the spiritual cause. That's the occult. And once we know that, and we can see the true cause, we get the truth. And then now we're blessed, because before we were in a position of lack, we were hungry, but now we are filled with the truth. Before we were hungry for spiritual knowledge and spiritual vision and spiritual power, but now we are filled.
When you're saying that the hunger is requirement, we have to be open to receive divine sustenance.
If you're not hungry for spiritual truth, then you're searching for it.
Right.
If you're not hungry, then you're never going to go through the pain of persecuting yourself in your heart. I mean, there are people that run into some sort of knowledge, and they don't want to go through this. They don't have that hunger for truth, and so there's a ball, an endless. They almost got the truth, but they didn't have or too much. A lot we're going to have to get relationship, church, relate the community, relate family. They weren't willing to put themselves through the persecution because they didn't have the hunger. But if you get that hunger, then you're willing to go through whatever it takes. You're willing to go to war. You're willing to put yourself to the battle till you're filled. And once you have that, then you're not going to let it go because that hunger never goes away. So it's a blessing to have that desire.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right, moving on to verse 70. Yeshua said, when you bring forth that within you, then that will save you. If you do not, then that will kill you. So this is, yeah, I mean, essentially we always have the choice between life or death. If we're not, kind of as I mentioned before, if we're not embodying the creation essence, the creative essence, then creation has no need for us. I mean, we can sustain for a time, but it's really only delaying the inevitable. So when you bring forth that within you, then that will save you. When we bring forth that creative essence within us, then that will save us. If we do not, then that same cycle of dissolving and reforming, death and rebirth, will go through that physically. If we do not, then that creative essence will kill us as well, in the sense that we have said, I'm not ready to live. I'm not ready to be a part of this creative essence, and so therefore I have this expiration date and I will die. So the choice is, do we allow that creative essence to flow through us or not? And it's a really simple decision. Can seem brutal if we throw emotions into it, but it really is just simple cause and effect. If we do not want to play this game, then this game has no use for us. If we don't want to live in creation and create with it, then creation has no use for us.
We can serve goodness with our life, or we can serve goodness with our death. But either way, we're going to... There's a lot of God to divorce themselves from that which is good. And they're going to learn the hard way. There's no escaping goodness. Applying this to ourselves, because we're at war with that which is evil, and we're trying to get to that place where they can't persecute us anymore. Because right now, everywhere in the world, Christians, that are trying to be like Christ, they're persecuted everywhere. Every day there seems like there's some report of, Christians being persecuted to death at the rate of tens of thousands, per week. So it's significant. So this is the verse that they need to hear. They need to learn to allow Christ into their hearts in a manner that changes things in the physical realm, so that they can get into a position of strength, so that they can protect themselves and protect their children and protect their wives and protect the people that they care about and protect their national families. Don't bring aspect of pride, then he can't come out to defend. And Christ is really talking about at mirror level, reality at the level of cause. Don't deal with reality at the level of effect, because there's going to be a big effect on you. I was having a conversation with my son about the necessity of real faith, because as a man, it doesn't matter how smart you are. There'll always be someone who's smarter than you that's your enemy. It doesn't matter how physically strong you are, because there'll always be somebody out there that has more strength than you, and they're your enemy, or how much physical resources that you have. There'll always be a bigger fish, but there can never be a bigger fish than the Christ in your heart. Because the Christ, everything out there belongs to the Christ. All the gold in the mountains, all the armies, all the wealth, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, it all belongs to the Christ. And that's why it's important to unify yourself with the Christ within you. Because then the Christ can go out and deal with the physical world, so that your enemies have to deal with him before they can even get to you. And that's the place where you're no longer persecuted, because they can't even get to you. And that is a real thing. That is a real situation. So when you're looking at all these so-called Christian nations that are in the process of being overrun, and their women are being raped, and the children are being murdered, why is that happening? Because they're not one with the Christ, and they're not exercising proper faith. And because of that, they're being persecuted. And that's why Christ, Yeshua said right there, if you do not, then that will kill you. It's not the invaders that are actually producing the cause. The cause was the lack of Christ in the heart, not exercising proper faith to change the physical construct of reality. We're the only ones that can do it, because that co-creative aspect with God belongs to the Christ and the children of the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
The Antichrist entities, they don't have that ability. Their entire methodology of attack, their entire method depends upon us being weak. Their entire tactic depends on us being ignorant. Their entire tactic depends on us alienating ourselves from the Christ. Because if we have knowledge of Christ, if we have knowledge of spiritual things, if we have strength, then they have no options.
Yep, very well said. So verse 71, Yeshua said, I will overturn this house, and none will be able to rebuild it. So he's talking about society created under this anti-Christic way. He said in other scriptures, I didn't come here to unite you, but I came here to divide you and rain thunder down and strike with fire. And he's not here to be this lovey-dovey, passive bullshit version of Jesus that we're spoon-fed by organized religion. He's coming to war with evil, and this house has been built on evil. So when the Christ returns fully, and that means within each and every one of us, there will be none that can rebuild this house of evil, because it's done.
Yeah. So basically he's saying here, God wins. He says, I'm going to win. I will overturn this house, the false construct of reality, and no one will be able to bring it back, because he's now residing in the place where he can't be persecuted. And so he's inviting us to come into his house. He's going to win. Whether or not we're part of that victory, whether or not we're part of him, well, that's up to us. But he's going to win. God always wins. That's pretty straightforward.
Yep. All right. Then verse 72, a man said to him, speak to my brothers, that they may share with me my father's property. Yeshua answered him, who made me into a divider? Turning to his disciples, he said, who am I to divide? So he says, speak to my brother. A man said to him, speak to my brothers, that they may share with me my father's property. Yeshua answered him, who made me into a divider? Turning to his disciples, he said, who am I to divide? So on a larger sense, he's just saying that there is no one else to divide with. Who am I to divide? Because the Christic essence is true recognition that there is only self, there is only I. So that's one thing he's likely alluding to. And then, perhaps also just demonstrating the example to not get into petty arguments over material possessions and things. Like, that's not, yeah.
So the man that said to him, if you read the other Christian Greek scriptures, this man is revealed to be a religious leader. So this religious leader is saying, speak to my brothers, the other religious leaders, so that they can share with me my father's property. So the father is the occult, the hidden knowledge, heaven. And he's saying, I want my own little piece of religion, because that's what Cabal, the Antichrist, has done, is he's taken the single knowledge of Christ and it's separated. You know, the Hindus have a little bit there, the Buddhists have a little bit there, the Taoists have a little bit, the Christians have, and then the Christians have, you know, they each have further separated and chopped up the teachings of Christ. So each little sub-Christian religion has a little piece of the teachings, and they all use it to eat up the Father's property, the people here on earth. And Christ saying, he's better. That's not what I do. I keep the truth together. One thing, one way, Christ. The one truth, that we are the Christ, because there isn't anyone else possibly we can be. There's just God. And it's a single truth. Stop chopping up religion.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have the East Baptists and the West Baptists, and you have this religion and that religion, and, you know, this Muslim faith, and none of these religions are supposed to exist. None of these governments are supposed to exist. There's just the children of Christ. That's it. Stop dividing.
Yeah. All right, verse 73, Yeshua said, the harvest is abundant, but the workers are few. Pray the master to send more workers to the harvest. So he's kind of highlighting the harvest is imminent. The time, you know, judgment day is coming. The time to separate the wheat from the tares is upon us. But the workers are few, those who can tend to that and help with it. So
it's straightforward.
Yeah, just calling on more Christic warriors to step forward as he's speaking in this whole book. Yeah. So verse 74, the master said, there are many who stand round the well, but no one to go down into it. So, yeah, I mean, it's really easy to stand and watch but those who actually take action and courageously step forward are few and far between. So he's just acknowledging this sort of effect that can happen, and it's I forget the terms that are used for it, but like where people are witnessing an accident happen or somebody hurt, and everyone just stands around and watches, thinking, oh, somebody else is going to take care of it, somebody else is going to do it. And that's the conditioning of society of Babylon, to put us in this state of inert cowardice, basically. And so he's just acknowledging that there are many who stand and watch, but no one to go down into it, no one to take that leap of faith and embody this Christic way, which requires a great deal of courage to do so.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're in a target-rich environment. There's many organizations that need to be torn down, but we need more workers that are willing to actually do the work of ripping stuff up.
Yep. So verse 75, Yeshua said, many are standing by the door, but only those who are alone and simple can enter the bridal chamber. So again, just sort of reiterating that many are maybe intellectually wanting to go in, so they're standing at the door, but only those who are alone and simple, not looking for a savior hand to do it, can't do it. You have to be alone. So it's a solitary journey, and as in not attached to material possessions and all of that. You have to be free of attachment. So only those can enter the bridal chamber, which physiologically is represented by the chamber within. So when we raise the chrism, the Christ within us, the illumination opens the bridal chamber, and that is a physiological process that happens that allows all the sacred secretions to emit, which leads to perpetual life and bliss. So, which is, the conditions to create a physical heavenly state. So this is referring to our physical anatomy as well.
So you're standing by the door. So the door is where you enter. The door located in your heart. So many people have the door. Have the script heart. However, only with the door yourself. No one can see you. No one forcibly you with the Christ. You have to do that by yourself. Alone, this means that there isn't anything physical. Critical that can don't become one with Christ. That's how. But you can now. There's nothing you can do it. You have to go to your heart, all self, in order to enter the battle chamber and meet Christ. All of your mind, all of your traditions, all the religion, all of it. Back out, and they're by the door again, so you can retain your relationship afterward, perhaps. But ultimately, you meet the Christ by yourself. Mm-hmm. The same way you came into this world, by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 76, the Father is murdered by a lotus cell and saw a pearl. Continue. The merchant dies and so the pearl. Having some issues. Okay. So those wise sold his goods to buy the pearl. You too should pursue the treasure which is everlasting, where their moths never go, nor worms devour. So again, the merchant has his goods, then he saw the pearl. And this is the pearl of wisdom, this is the divine inspiration, this is that hit of clarity and power, even from this Krystic way. And once you get a taste of it, there's nothing that's more precious. There's nothing that's worthwhile. So we have to be willing to sell all our goods in pursuit of that. Even if everyone around us calls us foolish for, abandoning our job or whatever the case may be, that society has conditioned us that this is what it means to be successful. We abandon all of that. We sell it all in order to pursue the pearl, because that's the only thing that matters. And it's not a physical treasure there where moths never go, nor worms devour, because it's within. It's the only treasure. It's the only treasure to really pursue.
So the merchant is any religious person, and he has his merchandise. He has the spiritual traditions. He has whatever spiritual book he has, where he's going to discover a pearl. And pearl it's the actual relationship with the Christ. It's the actual relationship with your truest, highest self. So God is not actually the Bible. He's not actually in the Bible, but the Bible is kind of like a map talking about a place, because it's talking about a city that you can never actually arrive at. It doesn't actually have a name, right? So all of these holy traditions that we have, whatever religion, the traditions aren't actually God. They're just very poor tools for trying to get to God. And so you have these religious people, and they're born into the world, and they have a culture, they have an identity, they have a religion, they have a political whatever. But none of these things are actually God. However, through the use of these things, they realize, oh, wait a sec, there really is a God. Okay, God is not the God of my religion. Okay, we're not worshiping how we know God or what we think God is. There's actually really is a self outside of that it's true, it's real. And so we sell all of our belongings. We let go of all of our traditions. We let go of our religion. We let go of our politics. We let go of our cultural identity. And instead we reach out for the truth of who we really are. We reach out for the Christ that's within.
Yeah.
And once we have it, then we have, instead of having the appearance of wealth, then we actually have wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having dollar bills, right? The dollar bills are a representation of value, but they actually don't have any value. And so you take that dollar bill and you buy silver, right? And that's real. Okay. So, financial systems come and go, but the silver remains eternal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's what it's like. And so it says that you pursue the treasure which is everlasting, where the moths never go and the worms don't devour. So the moths are like the early church. Once you have the relationship with Christ, they can't take it from you. And the worms that devour, those are people that change the scriptures. They've removed the Apocrypha. Like the Gospel of Thomas is supposed to be in the Bible, but they took it out, right? But once we have that pearl, then it doesn't matter that they took it out because we found it anyway.
Right.
Screw them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So going to verse 77, Yeshua said, I am the light that shines on everyone. I am the all. The all came forth from me, and the all came into me. Split there, turn over the stone, and there you will find me. So, 77 demonstrated accidents or full verse, and it's just a stamp to, say that Christ is all. We're all children of this, and we all Christ. We just are in very third thing that's great. That you are in there, you will find me in that way. So he's just emphasizing it here.
What stones have to do with building things, building light. You have like masons that build civilizations, right? And they build it out of stone or individual concept ideas. So when we turn these concepts as we find come the absolute all aspects of just the absolute consciousness. And wood has to do with life, earth in between heaven. Wood, you split the difference between heaven and earth. You're still going to always find that there is. What's interesting that he talks about both the wood and stone. So he's saying, he's talking about everything that's in heaven, everything that's in the grave, all of it comes from the Christ, and all of it comes from the I am, and that's where you'll find him everywhere. So 77 is kind of the reward. So 76 is the merchant that sold all of his possessions. He sold his relationship with his religion. He sold his connection to politics or whatever. He got rid of all of that and he acquired real truth. And now he has the reward. Everywhere that he looks, whether he looks at the beginning or he looks at the end, he sees the Christ. Whether he looks in heaven or he looks here on earth, he sees the Christ. Whether he looks into the constructs of civilization, the stones, he's going to find the Christ. So once you have the Christ, everything becomes the Christ. But if you don't have that, then Christ is nowhere to be found.
Yep. Yeah, very well said. All right. Hopefully the connection's coming through okay. Breaking. Um, so 78, Joshua said, why do you roam the countryside to see some wind, to see people like your kings and courtiers in elegant clothes? They wear fine clothes, but they cannot know the truth. So this is kind of, yeah, we break up. See, so why do we do the thing that focus on the external? You know, of course, we can enjoy the external reality. And that's all our focus is on, just to see the external reality, to let our five physical senses guide our whole experience. Then we cannot know the truth. So that's kind of simply what I see in that.
So the countryside is sort of the country is not a city. So with a cult, or with the way that they would speak is speaking in contrast, right? So before talking about stone, so stones are what you build. But you're not country. Why do you roam the country? Why do you out in a place there is no God, where God's word is not taught, um, where there's no teachers? Are you looking for reeds shaken by the wind? So it's a reed shaken by the wind would be like spiritual teachings that are always going back and forth, that are just blown wherever. Or are you looking for people like your kings and courtiers and elegant teacher or elegant clothes? So are you looking just ever shifting religion? Are you looking for preachers that are put themselves up over you? You know, they good and they have a lot of words, but don't know the truth because they're not. Only the Christ can teach you. Only the Christ within you can teach you.
Yep. So verse 79, a woman in the crowd said to him, blessed are the womb that bore you and the breast that nursed you. He answered, blessed are those who listen to the word of the Father and truly follow it. For the day will come when you will say, blessed are the womb that has never borne and the breasts that have never nursed. So he's sort of batting down the attempts to put him on a pedestal and to get a religious figure out of him, to say this, and just doing it in a gentle way to say, if you truly listen to the word of the Father, then you'll know that blessed are the womb that has never borne and the breasts that have never nursed. It's not about what you've done, not about distinguishing those necessarily, adding those to an idol status, like putting people on a pedestal. I don't know. That's kind of what I get out of that one.
Okay, so the womb for Christ would be the Mosaic law, and the old, and that nourished him, the interesting, all those starting to follow him. But he says, because he was bringing in, so it says, oh, but blessed are those that hear the word of the Father. The Father is the unmanifested ideals of heaven. So blessed are those that can see and think and reason in spiritual occult terms, and that then follow it without you heard it. The day will come. The day is not there. Said in 2 years, we're going to let them never nurse. That's what he's saying. Because for the day will come, that's 2 days. It's 1,000 years. And if there's no womb and there's no breast, then there's no Old Testament and there's no New Testament, but rather everyone simply becomes the Christ. And there's just, instead of a bunch of people that are like Christ, there's a bunch of people that actually are Christ. See, the evil ones are not afraid of Christians. They're afraid of Christ. And religion can exist as long as it's just a bunch of people. Christ himself is not Christian. Christ is the Christ. It's like fool's gold versus actual gold, right? So Christ was saying in 2,000 years, no, just him. A religion, people, religion, expert, political nation when they're from the people united in the crossing doesn't need politics. And then it would be a blessed to be then all because politics and religion.
Yeah. And I don't know what's going on with issues here.
Computer reset. That's what it means.
Oh.
That's a tape in the middle of this.
Anything to do with connection, though. So verse 80 said, whoever knows the world is body, but the unworthy, whoever discovers the body, unworthy, discovers the world discovers the world worthy, whoever discovers the body. So the body in this is that if you know the world, you can see beyond it and see I mean, essentially what I'm saying is the world is unworthy of whoever discovers the body. So whoever knows the world discovers the body and steps outside of it. We're in the world, but not of the world, recognizing that. But the world is unworthy of whoever discovers the body because the world is inherently going to reject whoever sees it fully when the emperor has no clothes and you see it beyond that.
That's really close. So it's a continuation of the verses before. So he says, whoever knows the world knows that it's dead. So it says, so to say over the body, it might be a more accurate translation to say discovers the corpse. Okay, so whoever knows the world discovers the dead body. And that is really, really prophetic, because if we look at the systems of systems, what do we see? We see a bunch of corporations. And what's a corporation? It's a dead body, right? It's a ration of a body. It's a piece of a body. And together they make up the whole body of the system of systems. And even the churches are themselves corporations. They're nonprofits, right? And the other organizations that, profess to be helping, they're NGOs, they're corporations themselves. In order to be part of the system, you have to be a corporation. You have to be a corpse. Even yourself, we have social security numbers and we have identification cards, and we go into the court and the judge is wearing black out of respect for the dead, because legally we're dead. And when we sign our name on an illegal document, it has to be black and blue, because either we're choking to death or we're black with death. Right? So Yeshua is saying that if you see the world for what it really is, you realize that it's dead. And the world is unworthy of whoever sees this. You rise above it. Oh, the world, look all around me. It's full of dead people. because they're separated from the Christ, and their systems are separated from the Christ. There's nothing wrong with systems, but the systems have to be below the family. The systems have to be below the Christ. But the world, the systems are above the family, above the Christic person. And so it's dead because it's separated.
Yep. Well said. Thank you for that. Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we're happy to take questions, or if anyone has any other insights or things they want to share about the text, you're more than welcome to jump in. We can certainly keep going, but I just wanted to remind everyone of that. So in case you want to jump in at all. And so verse 81 says, Yeshua said, whoever has become rich, may he become king. Whoever has power, may he renounce it. So we have great responsibility. And we're inevitably going to we're going to become king when we become rich with spiritual knowledge. When we grow, we are going to be rich. May those spiritual and but whoever has power, so be full of those who are yearning for power for the sake of power, or wanting it. And that's why I often say humility is key. To stay humble, to lower ourselves to the earth, so that no matter what power we're bestowed, and inevitably we will be bestowed power if we follow this path, we are able to renounce it for the sake of simply pursuit of power, for just that, so that those who are in power stay humble. And yeah, so I see that's what he's saying here.
So whoever has become rich, so whoever has acquired the spiritual knowledge, may he become king. And what does a king do? The king decides who can speak and who can't speak. And the king speaks when he wants to. And those that speak against the king, well then, in ancient cultures, it's actually a crime to speak against the king. You don't get to disagree with the king off with your head if you do. It's not like our culture today where you're allowed to speak out against the government. You're allowed to speak out against the president. It's actually encouraged. So we have a culture that's at war with itself. But in ancient times, if you're the king and somebody wants to walk around saying the king's an idiot, well, that's not so healthy. So whoever has become rich, may he become king. So he's granted the right to speak and to teach, and no one can shut him up. But whoever has the power, that would be the religious leaders, and the rulers of whatever organizations, they should renounce their authority. They should realize that they don't have the wisdom, and so they should just be quiet.
Yep.
Now, the thing about being king is there is no king that stamps his foot and says, I am king. That's not how kingly power works. The way that masculine kingly power works is that a man will acquire, through self-control and through tribulations, he acquires self-control and competency. And then because he's genuinely powerful in of himself through his relationship with the Christ within, and because he's genuinely wise, then other men see that wisdom. They see the power within him. They see the competency, and then they are drawn to follow him because they realize a greater power than them. See, a true man loves it when he meets another man that's more powerful than him. A true man, when he meets another man that's more competent than he is, oh, he loves that. Because competency is so rare. True power is so rare. The ability to actually do good and to go out and do battle against the dragon, the chaos of the world, that's so precious. And it's such a wonderful thing to have. Because then you're not fighting alone. You're able to take shelter with someone who's smarter than you. Oh, that's a great thing. I love that when that happens, right? It's not like people today where they meet someone who's more competent and they start whining and complaining and trying to undermine, right? That's retarded behavior, right? So to be a king, because you become rich and you're able to now operate in the world at the level of being the cause instead of being subject to the effect, then that is something that is self-fulfilling. It's self-producing. It's self-enforcing. No one has to say that, oh, look, no one has to tell you you're the king. You just know it. And no one's going to argue with it over it. You don't have to stamp your foot and say, no, I'm the king. No, everyone just knows it. It's the reality of it. It's the truth. And then when you're in that position, then those that have a fake power, then they're just forced to renounce it.
Yep, I love that.
This is all the Christic battle plan of how to go out and do battle against the Antichrist.
So verse 82, Yeshua said, whoever is near to me is near to the fire. Whoever is far from me is far from the kingdom. So the baptism of fire, which is what Christ embodies, it burns away all impurities. You know, when you refine something in a forge, you are burning away impurities so that your metal has the greatest strength and qualities that you're seeking. So in order to perfect the greatest tools, you need the hottest fire. So whoever is near to the Christ is near to the fire and is being refined to create the highest quality of the tools. And whoever is far from me or the Christ or the fire is far from the kingdom and is falling into the impurities, falling into the defects, falling into rust and yeah, just decay. So it's just simply that we love the fire. Those who are truly following the Christic path, even though the fire can burn and it doesn't always feel comfortable, the process is refining. So it's shedding layers of heaviness and impurities so that we can become a better tool for the divine to wield.
Right. See, Christ is a king. And what's the purpose of kings? Kings are warriors. Kings go out into battle and they defend the women and they defend the children and they defend those that can't fight for themselves. And they stand strong against evil and they push back the darkness. And Christ is saying, whoever is near to me is near to the fire of battle. And whoever's far from me is far from my kingdom. So if you're not going to stand firm, if you're not going to be a warrior, get out of his kingdom. Now, I'm not saying that you have to actually go out and do battle against, the world. But the battle could just simply be in your own flesh.
That's where it has to start.
That's where it's got to start. And that might be where you fight for the rest of your days. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Christ will decide whether you go to the left or to the right, where you're supposed to. I'm not saying that you go out and do battle with that. Okay? But you should be standing firm against evil where it's lying, and that just might be just in your own flesh or your own family or your marriage, or trying to just the purity of your own children or the purity of marriage or your feelings. Whatever it is that there's something good that you're trying to defend, that's where you should stand your ground. And that's the fire that you have to be near. Because Christ is a warrior. The way that it works is that the manifestation of goodness always has a counterpart. There's always that recoil, and so there's the more there's something precious, someone that's evil is always going to try to come and take it. So it has to be defended. It's just the way that it is. There's no way to manifest heaven without also manifesting the possibility of hell. It's just the way it is. And so in order to truly be in heaven, heaven is full of warriors. Male, female, adult, child. Warriors, all of them pushing back against the manifestation of hell.
Yep. Yeah, very well said.
No Christian cowards.
No. So verse, here we go. We've got Rowan had a question or wanted to jump in. Go ahead, brother. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
There we go. With that before, there we go. It's working now. But was just saying thanks. Yeah, hopped on a little bit later today, but was able to catch the tail end of what I believe you were talking about, which was a great way to, yeah, this is awesome. Just kind of hopping on and just hearing, like, gathering together as a bunch of warriors, both men, women, and children, fighting against darkness. It's probably the coolest thing ever. And in this world that we find ourselves in, we, of course, want to surround ourselves with people who are strong and have this not only mentality but belief in what they do and hoping that it's the best thing, right? Because that's all we can really ask for. But with all this requirements of life, like having land to live on, and we've talked about this a few times, this whole like competition, it seems, of intellectual power versus just belief and faith in God, is that many of us want to help others who have already started with their projects and things, like building some, like, permaculture farm or something that produces good unpoisonous food that helps multiple families, if not build entire communities. And I don't know, I want to not just try to reinvent the wheel, but help or know how to help people or fellow, what we call warriors, who are fighting all kinds of fights. And as simple as from, like changing what you eat, or, like temptations of the flesh versus like, like even just making the wrong decisions financially. That's the point. Until this whole Nasara Jasara thing happens. And I don't know, like, I don't want to be sitting around on my butt. I like being a warrior. So I think what I'm bringing up here is, like, how can those of us who really do want to be, it's not about gaining validation, but it's just like becoming warriors we're just being naturally so, by investing in things that people have already started, put blood, sweat, and tears into. But just so many of these circles are scams. Some pretty bad stories out there of people wanting to do the right thing. And I know this is probably not the first time you guys have heard about that. But like, how can we apply this part of the Bible with basically being warriors of Christ and not limiting that to a certain definition, but just, we need land, we need food, we need things to like grow that food on. I think you see where I'm going with this. I'll end it there. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, great question. And I can only share how I personally pursue this. And it's like there's kind of two phases with it. If I don't have a calm assurance, if I'm not convicted in a particular direction of action where I feel that divine calling to move me into this space, if I don't have that, then default is always going back to refining my vessel, purifying my body, my mind, my emotions, all of that. So whatever that looks like for me in whatever moment, whether that's going deeper into physical cleansing through refining of the food, or going through meditative practices to find and refine the best ways to tap into that calm, open, receiving space, even through prayer, to pray, to be open, to be a divine vessel to receive, to be able to be wise enough to witness and see the signs as they're coming through. So that's like one state. If I'm not receiving a clear, direct guidance of action to put one thing forward, then that's what I fall back to. And that's like a warrior going training, be going exercising, and they're going to be the door time really to their skills, to make sure that they are ready to spar with partners, strength training, also focusing on purity of the body, making sure the body is well oiled and ready to move and be limber and all of that. So that same sort of thing, the training always plays the largest role in the warrior's life. But then there are times, and if we train well, there are times where the divine calls us to move, puts us in a situation where our warrior is called into action. And that can look any which way, but to me, the farther I've gone in this process, the clearer and clearer those nudges and nods become for me, to where it's like, okay, this is without a doubt where the divine wants me to go. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing or how I'm going to approach this, but that's what's next. So if you don't find that conviction or that clear guidance of the next step to put forward, then I would just suggest going back to the training, and that's where the faith really is proven as well. Because if we are just kind of halfway in faith and being like, but I'm not receiving anything, and I want that from a mental perspective, God knows what we want. So the leap of faith is trusting the timing, and it's not just individually based, we're collectively bound together. So this collective experience, we're not even just looking at a singular lifetime. This is generations of moments where we've been, the righteous have been called to train, where the external circumstances might not be there in that moment to strike or to act. So God, the Christ is preparing his warriors for that moment to strike. And I don't mean it necessarily in a literal physical battle sort of sense, but to help conceptualize in that way, that's great. But just to do the thing that you're referring to, where there's less inhibitions from society to prevent that kind of thing. Like you're talking about growing food for communities to live. There's lots of blocks and things that come up that are in place, have been. Those are starting to fade away. But all to say is, we have to trust the divine timing. God saves his most precious, most powerful tools. Not to, like, a general in battle is not going to rush out his prize warriors right at the beginning. The battle needs to progress, and there needs to be some space and some strategy for those fine tools to be used in the appropriate way. Otherwise, they just get wasted. So we can hark on that same sort of concept, that if we don't find that inspiration here in this moment, then perhaps we're being saved for something far greater. And I don't even need to say perhaps. You are being saved for something far greater. That's just the way of it. So if it's not presenting itself now, then we're not ready, or the situation is not ready, which is all really one and the same. So that's what I would say to that. But I'd love to hear Darth's perspective on that as well.
No, the question he asked, okay, so what do we do? What do we do with this knowledge? How do we implement this into actually manifesting Christ into the world? So before you can save the world, you have to save your world, right? So it's kind of like, when you're in the airplane and the airplane's having turbulence and the masks drop down, they always say, put your own mask on first, and then you help the people to either side of you. So before you can save anyone else, you have to save yourself. Before you can introduce anyone else to Christ, you have to introduce yourself to Christ. And then you receive your marching orders directly from the Christ. So there would be you won't have to ask the question, what do I do? Because you'll know what to do, because you're the Christ, and the Christ knows what to do. So first you save your world, and then you can save other people's worlds, and then eventually the world. Okay, and so there's going to be some way, due to the uniqueness of your persona and the uniqueness of your relationship with the Christ, there's going to be some way that you're going to be able to especially manifest goodness into the world, or just even perceive goodness in the world, because just the perception of goodness in the world of value to Christ. Because the Christ is not made, or some Christ is not possessing a persona in this world, can't see it. He needs us to see the world. When the Christ is higher realms separated from your persona, this place doesn't exist. So for this place to exist, we have to be unified with him so that he can see it. And he needs to see it in order for it to exist. So even just the ability to be unified with the Christ and see the world, even that might value. That might be what Christ is looking for in you. But if you can actually also be the good that other people can see, If other people can look at you and say, wow, this is a good person, they might not know that they're talking about Christ. Then they can be like, well, he helped me out when I really needed it. Wow, he let me talk to him. I needed someone to talk to. Or wow, he gave me $2 and it was the last $2 and he gave it to me. And because of that, I was able to buy a packet of ramen noodles or whatever. Small thing that's to you, it's not a big deal, but to them, it was their world, right? And now Christ can see the goodness of you through their eyes, because that's the whole point of living down here with this relative separation from Christ, is because now there's an infinite number of ways that goodness can be perceived and manifested. So our separation from God is actually useful, because now we can live down here and see all the goodness separated. So first, unify with the Christ in your own heart. Become the Christ in the heart. Make sure your pursuit of Christ are always in agreement. And then save yourself. Save your own world. And make your own world better. And try to make the other people's around you, at least don't make their worlds worse. Okay? First, do no harm. And then see if there's something you can a little bit better.
And trust the those kind of actions, just smiling at somebody as you walk past, or kind gesture, just saying, these things are massive energetically as far as what they give off. And it's part of the greatest deception to have us to believe that we're small and powerless, insignificant, that we're just worthless sinners, or just tucked away on some floating rock hurling through space, possible space that could be any moment. These are lies that make you feel like and you can't do anything to change. But what if the opposite is true, and that everything that you do is immensely powerful? Every action, everything that we do is incredible. And so to treat every interaction that we have with another form of consciousness as this miracle that it truly is, and to be a conduit for thatness to interact with these other forms of consciousness, so that collectively as a whole, one singular source of consciousness, we feel that love emanating from within ourselves. That's magic.
So the principle is, as when so Christ in your world, and Christ would be in the world as being. Okay? The Christ not in your personal, but also leaves the world outside of you. So the best way to improve what's outside is to improve what's within. And don't worry about, I have to go out there and do battle with this government, or I have to go out there and battle with that church. Battle with yourself. And then because as you improve your inner world, your world also has to improve. Be side by side with each other, and they both have the same physical resources, but one is improving his world and the other one is giving into that goodness. What happens is that their worlds kind of part and they split. One goes off and goes on an improved condition, and because we're right in the lower, we can't tell at the timeline exact split. And so for one person, he went off into a world that was filled with, tyranny and communism and poison and destruction. And the other person, they can't tell because the reality is infinite. God, a million for everyone. Even though we're sitting side by side next to each other here, just actually world, and I'm in a world a little bit, but worlds only appear to, but from spirit realm, you can say, they're different worlds. That's an alignment, because we believe our vision of the Christ, the way we Christ, is extremely similar. And so because of that, our physical world is very similar. And so we're able to stay near to each other and help. But one of us was to aim the Christ within, then they would be in effect separated, and there's nothing that could stop that from happening. So we're going and doing battle with the external world. First, battle with your world, and let the Christ deal with the world. What we were talking about in the verses, at first you go through the persecution, and blessed are those that go through the persecution. And eventually they get to a place where they no longer be persecuted. So the verse before, here, the verse before is the actual answer to your question.
I see. Yes. And just so you guys know, the connection's not the best. You might not hear me now. Just hostels here is not that good. But yes,
just
real quick, Ron.
So, verse 58, the Gospel of Thomas. Yeshua said, "Blessed are you when they hate you and persecute you. There is a place where you are not persecuted, they will never find." So that's the answer to your question, is your tribulation. But as you get closer to life, then the tribulations that you go through get less and less. And then eventually there will be tribulations in the world. If you look for tribulation, you'll always find it. If you look for people that are not Christ-like, you'll always find them. And if you look for hell, you'll always find it. And if you look for people in hell, you find them. Because reality is infinite and infinite. So not worry about the world, worry about your and the worlds of the people that you touch.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron, if you have any follow-up.
Yeah, the connection is really not the best here. I'm pretty sure you can't always tell if I'm even if you can hear me. I could hear parts of what you're saying though. So I'm actually not going to try to make it more complicated. I'll have to listen to the replay after. It seems like it's really bad right now. But I've heard more than half of what you said, and it all made sense. It's always still learning how to look at things differently and to not be literal about certain information. Don't really know how else to say that, but I think you know what I mean. But yeah, thank you for helping with that, because yeah, we want to be warriors and helping other warriors do the right thing. So yeah, thanks again. I'll open up the mic.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a continual learning process.
We can hear also.
Yeah, we can. Cool. Well, yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? We can probably do about one more verse, unless more questions. So feel free to jump in if you do have any others. Sorry, it's been weird today. It seems to be strange things in the interwebs. But hopefully everything's come through at least clear enough. Oh, here we go. We got Sarah M. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I just want to give some feedback on the sound there, Justin. Just now I could hear Rowan really, really clearly. And then prior to that, your voice and Darth's voice was a little bit going in and out. So I'm just offering that feedback. So I just now when you were speaking, it actually sounds clearer than before. So I'm not sure if you did something to remedy that, but anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate feedback, and I hope the whole recording comes through okay. So you're saying I'm coming through clearly now?
Actually, a little bit shaky from my end, from what I can hear.
Oh, well, that might be a sign that it's good to kind of shut down today, and yeah, we don't want to have too much of this be garbled. So hopefully you can hear me now, and just appreciate everyone for coming here today, and thanks Rowan and Sarah for speaking up, and yeah, we'll continue this series, pick up at verse 83 next week, same time is the plan. And yeah, we'll keep it on. So love you all so very much. Thanks, Darth, for being here. And yeah, got any words or anything?
No, this is a good place to stop.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.